We're going to talk a little bit about a new feature that's offered in CRM 2013, and that's business rules. Anyone familiar with business rules? Have you used them yet?
I have. Does that count?
Yes, it does. So, Microsoft offers several things out of the box, which is really great. They offer business rule, real-time workflows, asynchronous workflows, and dialogues, all of which has their distinct disadvantages, and what I'll call cautions with each one. So, executes before the save, applies to the data, updates through the UI, working with a single record, cannot access data from related records, can manipulate data and UI. So what's that mean? It means on the form, as I'm doing stuff, things can happen real time, similar to JavaScript on the form. You put JavaScript in there to go back to that usability piece. I can hide, unhide, set fields required, lock a field down. There's a lot of different things. Workflows, asynchronous workflows, real-time workflows. Basically the same. The big difference is one runs as you're saving the record. The other one is timed. It will run on a minute-by-minute basis, and if you've got delays, it will wait, and things like this. And then you've got dialogues. So these are individual records that pop that kind of guide you through the proper entry of things. We're going to focus a little bit more on business rules. So it gives more power to the business. So how do I get more power to the business through business rules? One of the things is I can show an error message. So if I come up there into a field and type something in or make an invalid selection, I can come up there and say, give a message. You shouldn't have done this. It locks that field. You can't save it until you correct that value. So it shows a message. It shows it above the field that it's tied to. The other thing is I can come up there, set or calculate a field value, set a field as required, not required, hide or show a field, lock or unlock. So I've got a little set of capabilities here that I can do with business rules. That's the limit of what I can do at this point. But it's really nice. I can calculate a field. So if you go out there and you've got a contract that says that they can purchase 10 items, and you've got something running out there that said that they've already purchased 3, you can have a thing out there that calculates the remaining. So we can increase the usability by auto-populating some fields. We can make sure fields are populated correctly. We can set fields as required, not required. We can hide or show the field. If I select this value, display these 3 values. I select this one, show these values. So I can control all this. Lock or unlock a field. Set it up on the field. So what happens is the nice part about these business rules is they're security-based as to who can create them. Like you can pass out a security role to, a super user. They can go out there and create some of these things, put them on the form. They're tied to a form specifically, to a single entity, and you can put in some of your own business rules. You do not need a developer to come up here and go in there with a web resource, write this JScript code, and put this in, or write a plugin to do these validations or calculations during a save process and return an error message back when it doesn't save because it failed on one of those processes. So you can put these things up front as the field is changing.
Mike, the screenshot that you have in there, that is actually the business rule configuration?
Yes.
Where you just go as a user, you just configure the logic and you say publish. No coding needed.
So these rules work everywhere. Web forms, tablets, mobile phones. One nice advantage to it. JavaScript doesn't work every place. So one reason to consider it. rules are applied to all entities. So any entity that you have out there, any out-of-the-box ones, any custom entities. So really, it's any customizable entity you can put these business rules on. They run client-side, similar to JavaScript. Need a quick explanation of the difference between server-side, client-side? Client-side runs on their individual computer. Server-side runs back at the main servers. So the nice part about these is they run client-side, so you can push some of the processing power out to the individual computers, taking some of the load off of your servers. It can be activated, deactivated, duplicate with the rules, so you can, if you've got one out there, you can do a save as, and packaged in a solution. So the nice part is you can put a rule out there, I don't like it, deactivate it. I can start building one out there, having it sitting out there, waiting for a training to happen to say that this is going to go into place. After the training's done, you activate it. It can duplicate. So as you're out there and I set up this logic to set a field required, I can do a save as and then add on to it without having to build the thing from the ground up again. And then the nice part is you do it in development. As we know, we've worked with CRM to move anything into UAT or production. You throw it into a solution, it moves over. So it goes right into a solution and it moves up real nice. If you have multiple forms, the nice part about these flows are you can tell it to run on all forms or a specific form. So you're not limited to, so if you're breaking your things up into multiple forms and one group needs to have something required and the other one doesn't, you can then put these business rules on those individual forms. So they don't have to cross all the forms. One of the things about it is it's limited to a single entity. So if I come up there and put this on the case, I cannot affect the account or the customer or any of the other records out there. I can't go out there and adjust anything to child records. I can only do it to the entity it's on. So one of the downfalls, which we will get in there, is it has limited capabilities for conditional if-else logic with multiple branches. So basically, it's an if statement. So if you put in a condition and another condition and another condition, they're ANDed together. So based upon that, I'm going to come up there, build this condition. If this is true, hide this field. It's great. I did my conditions, I did my logic. We forgot one big thing. What happens if it was true? Hit it. Now it goes back to false. You want to unhide it. You have to write a second business rule. Else part is not considered in part of these rules. So, a couple of examples. So if someone has marital status and it says married, then we want to make the spouse required. Simple, nice, simple little business rule that we can put out there and take advantage of this. So count values. So again, going back to that count, what's our remaining count? We got a total count. You purchased so many, you've already picked up X amount, what's remaining? Instead of writing a piece of JavaScript code to calculate that, or even leaving it blank and relying upon our report. If we have it on the form, it's there, it's now searchable, it can be an advanced find. You can then export it into the Power Excel with a Power View and the Power Query, and it's out there as an available value to you. So if estimated revenue contains data, then set purchase time frame to required. Again, I can check to see if something's got a value to it, doesn't have a value to it. and set items required. You can start seeing how this can be pretty powerful. So let's take a look at another part. If the territory equals Midwest, set the owner to Mike Busby.
Yes, Mike, one of the things about these examples that you're presenting to kind of tie back to your previous points in the presentation is making user acceptance easier, automating things. I mean, those are the things that users don't have to think about it. Those are the things that allow you to simplify the forms and do the things automatically instead of trying to fill in the gaps and then worry about the data integrity down the line.
So, big note is string comparisons are case sensitive. So Midwest, you know, if they put it in all caps, it wouldn't match. If it was in all lower cases, it wouldn't match if you put this in there. That goes back to territory. Should that be a text field or maybe a pick list or a lookup? Now you don't have to worry about case sensitivity because now you've controlled the spelling. And that goes for case sensitive and not case sensitive for fields and values. Makes life down the road much simpler anytime that we can take advantage of that. But you can see where just for the business rules, which most people have probably written JavaScript out there, if you pick this state, limit it down to this. If you do this, you know, set this value. So here's a territory. You can set, you know, the sales rep as the owner accordingly. If the field contains a value, then display an error message. Again, back to that error message. Someone put something into a field that they weren't supposed to at that point. You can say, you shouldn't enter in this value. What it does is it locks that form from being saved until you remove that error message, until it's gone. If lead source equals partner, then business phone and email address are required and hide mobile phone. So you can start seeing all the uses of this. It can be very powerful. It gives the control back to the end user. If you recall, some of you have been with CRM since 3.0. How far back? 4?
Just 4 for me.
Anyone? 4, 11 and above. Well, back in CRM 3.0, I had some major concerns about it because they were taking too many controls and saying an administrative assistant can make these changes, similar to these business rules. And that's great. You know, you want to kind of distribute that out there. You don't always want to have to get a developer involved. But, you know, to me, I'm sorry, your CRM applications and enterprise applications should be treated as such. You need to have the right people in place that understands when they put in one of these rules what the downstream effects are, or the ripple effects, or all these other pieces. Back in CRM 4.0, they started getting that picture a little bit. 2011, they really got the picture. Then they come back and they bring this. So I throw out the big word of caution on these business rules. Limit who can add them, activate them, because it is your business application. If someone starts making a field required that doesn't need to be, it's required for everybody. If they suddenly change a field to be not required, that you need it, creates other issues. They hide a field that was supposed to be entered. So you can kind of see the effects. And coming up there and saying that an administrative assistant should always have those power, you know, maybe they are a power user and they should. But, you know, to me, you know, this is just that word of caution. Make sure that those that are using it understand the application. And, you know, if it's just a simple little entry part where they're keeping their notes, maybe it doesn't matter. But I can't imagine someone would purchase CRM to do something like that. You've got CRM that's out there. It's an enterprise app. It should follow all the rules of an enterprise application, and everything should start in dev, test it, whether you have a UAT or not box, but then before it all goes to production. So, going into the cautions, going down through. So rules run in order. If you've got 10 rules, they're going to run in the order that you have them listed in. So first rule hides the field. 3 rules down that hides it again. It was already hidden, or unhides it. You know, so sometimes in looking at what's going on, you kind of have to go down and start with your rules from top down. Rules do not hide tabs or sections. The only way to hide a tab or section is hide all the fields in that section or tab, and then it will hide automatically because that's what CRM does. Rules are currently and only. As I said, this and this and this. It's not this or this. It's, you have to create two separate rules to do an or situation. Since this is new out there, there's been a lot of talk, and they're looking at putting all this conditional logic. If you've worked with the workflows, which is much, much better than what it used to be, and if they put those kind of conditions in, leaves the same actions, I think they'll come a long way. And you have to believe it's going to happen. Rules will be evaluated during the form load and when a field in the condition is changed. So if you put a condition on last name, anytime that last name changes, the rule triggers. When the form loads, it goes out there and triggers. JavaScript will run before business rules. So if you got a JavaScript out there that goes and hides a field, and then this goes and unhides it, the business rule wins because it's last one to execute. Count for both sides of an if. If estimated revenue contains data, hide this. Then you need a second rule. If this does not contain data, display it. Two rules. Because if you don't account for the other part, whatever rule ran that met the condition, that's going to be the last thing that's shown up there. So you've got to have both sides of it. So if you're doing an if, you need to come up with the else part. If you need an if, else if, then you got to have your default clause. So you need to account for all those possible branches, because you could set something required, which when you change something isn't required anymore, but if you don't have that part of the branch out there to unrequire it, it's still going to remain required. Back to who should be creating it. Treat your CRM as an enterprise application the same way that you go through the processes to add any process into CRM or any of these other things should apply to your business rules. Questions?